Hello.
Top of the afternoon to you. Or, yeah, it was a high noon there.
It is noon. It is.
Hello, top of the noon hour to you, young man.
That's right. It's I don't know about where you are, but we finally got our first winter wonderland storm coming in today, where
Oh,
true snow
cool.
accumulation is happening.
That's
Um,
cool if you're like me and just home.
yeah, I had some errands to do this morning, so I drove out in it for a bit. It was good on the way out. On the way home, people were starting to spin out. So
No. So
yeah,
that means it'll hit here in about 2 days, probably.
probably. Yeah, you're in the same sort
Okay,
of
we'll,
jet
we'll,
stream.
yeah, we'll keep our eye out for it. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah,
Yeah, for the warning.
we get the Washington version, which is mostly wet, and you'll
Yeah,
probably get the 10 degrees cooler frozen tundra version of it. So
absolutely. And
yeah.
I acknowledged your wonderful hat when we were in the green room, but let me do it on the air too. It's a beautiful touch.
Oh, thank you. Well, I had some other options. I would have sent them. I send them your way if I could. I'm sure all the cool kids could say there's a filter on your computer you could use and just add it on for you.
Oh,
But I have some. What do I have upstairs? I got some. I got some little headband antlers and some Rudolph noses. But the Santa hat won out, and I think that's always a default for me around the holidays because I am fortunate to share the name a name with good old Saint Nick. So why not?
I didn't even think of that. There you
Yeah.
are, Saint Nick.
Far
Oh,
from, but yeah, I'll take it.
outstanding. You know, back when I was working in a church, what's his name? The real Saint Nick. I forget what his real name was. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah,
they had a day for him every
yeah.
year. Nicholas
Hmm.
of Arimathea or some kind of
Yeah,
name.
yeah, it does sound familiar. I remember from my Catholic
Yeah, yeah, and
high school days.
I would commemorate him, and I would describe him, and he was an interesting person. And then
Yeah.
I'd say at the end of it, plus he was known to, that when he shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. Every year I get people to laugh at that line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear the story about stockings and him?
No. Was it
So
was
the
it stockings with
original,
coins in it or food? I don't remember.
well, what happened was the original Nicholas of whatever he was, I forget. I think he was Eastern Orthodox.
Okay.
Um, I think he became a bishop, but known to have a very kind heart, very gentle soul,
Yeah.
and he had a lot of friends. And he had three daughters of a guy who died, and their mother died, and so they were orphans. Um, but in their teens, and they were didn't have any social security
Hmm.
or anything, and so they were about to go into prostitution just to live.
Oh, okay.
And he snuck into their house at night and put um, bars of gold in their stockings, which were drying over the fireplace.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
made them instantly wealthy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the Nicene Creed? Did you ever
Nice.
go to church? I don't know.
I I did, but I went to a few different versions of church and I don't recall certain specifics in that sense. No.
It's like a doctrinal formula that
Okay.
you recite. It's kind of elaborate. He participated in the writing of it, and it's still in Nicene. Although that wasn't from him, there was actually a place called Nicene.
So it's tell me what I'm going to look it up later. So it's the Nicene
Creed.
Creed. Okay, Nicene Creed. I'm going to look that up. That sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
it's kind of elaborate. There's it's a much simpler thing that you can recite where you affirm your faith. It's called the Apostles' Creed. It's much easier and not
Mm,
so abstract. The Nicene Creed was always kind of abstract. This fourth century, they were getting more and more further away from the actual vitality and more into sort of legalizing and formalizing their faith.
Mm.
Not that I intended to come on here and talk about the Nicene Creed today.
Right. It's hard not to spill a little bit of the season into some of anybody who's
Yes,
online doing a live stream or a reel or whatever today. So you got to give a nod to the, what do you call it? The flavor of the day or the time. Right. So,
that's right. And
but
you
yeah,
had a wonderful party on
I,
Friday night.
I did. Yeah.
You can tell our hearers about it.
I had, well, it was supposed to be 12, 8 and 9-year-old girls. It turned out to be 10, which is good. Still incredible showing. Lots of illnesses this time of year too. Yeah, so it was a busy weekend. We kicked off the weekend with a Friday after school 3-hour holiday party. My youngest daughter, she this is her 4th year of having a friends, holiday event that she handwrites her invitations to all of her friends and delivers them. And she works with my wife to do all the cookie cutting and get the cookies ready so they can do cookie decorating, gift exchange, and some literal reindeer games with reindeer ears. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Pretty overstimulating and busy, but at the same time, just it's cool to see the joy and the spirit. And I admire my daughter for being so committed to, like, I need to do this annual thing. I want to do it. It's all in this good spirit of sharing. So I think that's amazing.
That's super great.
So, and then we went into a full weekend of a basketball tournament. And her team got better, but they only I think they came in 5th out of 6 teams. But they won one game against a team that was really tough, and they kept getting better. So that's all that really matters. So yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah. How about you? What have you been up to?
Oh my goodness, I have quite the tale to tell.
Oh, do you?
I'll try not to make this be a 30-minute.
Okay. Well, if you can tie in some waging nonviolence, then we're all good. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I can tie it in at one
All
point.
right. Here we go.
So there was Monday, 1 week ago today. I came downstairs, as is my wont, at 6:30ish, 7ish, and fed the cats.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 here, and 3 came and ate. And no Hastings, my little black guy.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, okay, well, I went and did my language lessons. I'm studying Welsh and Scots Gaelic, so I did that for about 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Mary came down at some point during that, and I said, well, I'm not seeing Hastings. I'm going to go find him. He has a couple haunts. So I went and looked at the first one. He wasn't there. I went down to the basement where he sometimes goes, and there he was, but he was hyperventilating.
Oh, no.
So I carried him upstairs, and Mary and I agreed instantly to take him to the vet.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't long before a veterinarian was saying to us a lot of jargon, losing us in his medical jargon. At least he was losing me. But in the midst of it, he inserted the phrase, probably fatal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. We already lost one cat, and I've had a couple other cats die over time.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Aphrodite and Nico and Tungsten. Mary's lost several.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in the mood.
Yeah.
So we had him have a cardiac paracentesis, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And then taken to animal hospital.
Oh, wow.
And where he stayed. Good news is we had up and down for several days.
Yeah.
He got onto medication finally on Wednesday night. We had to get it in the mail.
Mm.
So finally, the UPS truck comes here to the house, and he's just sitting out there by the mailbox, not getting out of his car and bringing the meds to us. Then he gets out and he goes to one house, and he goes to the other, and he goes back to the truck.
Mm-mm.
I run out there in my socks. I'm going, do you have medication?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Here. I said, good. Cat's life is in danger. I was wondering when you were going to deliver it.
Oh boy.
But we got the medication to the cat, but the next morning at about 5:30, one of the vets said, "If it was me, I'd put the cat down."
Right.
And I said, um, it's give how long before the medication is at full strength in his bloodstream, and
Right.
how long after that before it achieves its effects fully? This seems like a premature call.
Mm-hmm.
So we kept him alive, and he recovered, and he's
Oh.
home.
Oh, good.
He's home. So Christmas for me this year is the survival of Hastings,
Mm-hmm.
as well as other things, but
Yeah.
it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's alive.
Did they give you any indication what might have caused the condition?
Feline infectious paracentesis,
Par- Pericarditis.
pericarditis.
Yeah. Okay.
Feline infectious pericarditis. It usually kills people, cats,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but on this occasion, they found the medication for it in about February of this past year. It was
Wow.
developed, and so they're still in kind of a
Trial.
trial,
Yeah.
and figuring it all out. And so,
It's not quite protocoled or anything like that yet.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, from your own experience with this that there's probably many stops along the way where were like, this is where, the most people stop. This is where the slightly more dedicated people stop. This is where, they'll tell you along the lines, like, we don't normally go this far because people have usually decided, and for most reasons, limitations to finances, because not a lot of people have pet insurance that covers things.
Right.
So
We
they
don't have
tend to stop a lot earlier. Yeah.
right. We don't have infinite money,
Yeah.
and but he's alive now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's going to have to take this medication the rest of his life. It sounds like it, but I'm hoping that that's not the case.
Yeah.
He's got 5 refills. We'll go through all those,
Mm-hmm.
and then see what happens.
Well, for whatever, I don't formally pray, but I definitely think and send vibes through the universe and all the ways that I can for
Amen.
Hastings. Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
Reiki mixed with juju.
Yes. Oh, whatever your method of healing is, deliver and wishes is, all of those. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my story.
Mm-hmm. Well, gosh, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That sounds really overwhelming.
Yeah. Late last week we had one of the longest days of our lives, Mary and me.
Mm-hmm.
After they said it doesn't look good, I'd put him down if I were you.
Right.
We're like, no, let's give him 24 more hours, and then it was like, ay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's, milling about here. I was turning around looking to see if he's sitting on a chair behind me, which he is not doing. But if he comes up there and sits like he often does, I will put the camera on him.
Yeah. I know you've had we've said hi to Hastings a few times before.
Yes.
It's familiar.
And Stargill's wandered around.
Yeah.
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 So we've got waging nonviolence.
So let me tell you how I can tie that in real quick. And I think it's relevant because there's a moment, and I'm gonna your little your story, and I will tell you there's a moment where my wife and I, in the leading up to, as you can imagine, having this many kids and hosting a party, things get a little bit tense. Are you doing enough to help out? Are you getting ready? And you miss each other, right? And I sent her, after we had our little quips, or mostly me, her, saying that's not helpful. Um, I sent her a little meme picture, and it was something along the lines of, moral of the story is you don't know what the other person is carrying and burdening with, right?
Yeah.
So I think of waging nonviolence, and it's really important to have this perspective and to say, well, have what you don't know what John's going through right now. Have some, consider that there may be things that John's going through if someone out in the world is interacting with John, right? And my wife and I sent her the meme, and the picture was a guy. It was like a cartoon graphic, comic strip type style. A guy leaning over the cliff with a massive boulder on his back, crushing him, but he was reaching over the cliff, holding his wife's hand, or the woman's hand in this scene. And underneath them is like a little nook that has like a rattlesnake in it. So their arms are there connected, and she's like, "Why won't he pull me up and get around this snake?" And he's going, "Why won't you help yourself and grab on?" And so the point is that she's getting bit by a snake on the arm, and he's getting crushed by a boulder, and they're both wondering, why isn't the other person doing more to help? And so I thought, that's my little anecdotal story, your story about enduring some true pain and difficulty, some suffering, and yet we all have to go out in this world and work with these differing opinions of where society should be, where culture should be, where we stand on major issues, political or social. So that's
very astute. I
my
love
lead
it.
in. That's my lead in for you.
I like that cartoon. That's really nice.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so let's
Okay.
see. Where do we leave off of waging nonviolence?
Yeah, I just go through a little bit of rewind for people who might be seeing this for the first time.
Okay.
We're talking about um, pointers for coping with um, the Trump presidency, which I view as a very powerful anti-American takeover of the country. Definitely opposed to the constraints of the Constitution. Definitely committed to creating as much suffering amongst the regular people so that the uh, oligarchs and billionaires can profit. That's how I view what we're talking about. Do you agree, or am I overstating it?
No. I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we found this woman named Samantha Sweetwater that I follow. She's got a book coming out this coming year. She's very brilliant. She shared this article called, but a website called "Waging Nonviolence" and this things to do. Interestingly, I've gone back and looked at that, and there's a lot of comments saying, "Well, this guy's too negative about the Trump administration." In the comments in response,
Mm.
oh, he's a fear monger. I'm like, oh, really? You guys are in denial about how bad this could be.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, we talked last time about some of the points that he shared,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
were one of them was find your path. This was one, I think, it was kind of the keynote of the conversation last time. And there was four different paths that you can do.
Right.
And I don't think we got through them all. Protect people. Defend civic institutions, which is what I think we got the first
Right. We
time.
did get to that. Yep. Because we
Yeah,
talked a lot about our parks and recreation, things like that, common
yeah,
area spaces. Yeah. And really enjoying them, and like being a part of it and engaging is really how you can support them the best, kind of. Yeah.
yeah, and subscribe to newspaper or magazine
Yep.
that's doing good journalism.
Right.
Um, museums and libraries, uh,
Mm-hmm.
things that are sort of normal bulwark.
Right.
Um, local political normalcy, put it.
Mm-hmm.
Schools, defend your schools. from fascist takeover.
Right. Yeah.
To protect people, we went through. We were talking about people arriving from other shores, and
Mhm.
helping the
The homeless.
homeless, the
Yeah.
elderly in nursing homes,
Right.
um, things like that. Everybody can be creative. We don't have to be too prescriptive, but
Right.
they can get the idea. Um, but there were two other ones that we didn't get into, I don't think.
No. Not. Yeah. Those ones all ring a bell.
Right. The other two were disrupt and disobey,
Mm.
and
Okay.
build alternatives.
Build alternatives.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does
So,
that look like?
okay, we'll go to that one first.
Okay.
Um, I'm very interested in this one because it seems so hopeful to me.
Yeah.
I've never thought this way in my life about building alternatives. I've always just thought work within the system and try to make it the best that you can. I think um, he's talking about things like promoting what they call that community supported agriculture.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the farmers, as opposed to buying things in a grocery store, uh, and depending on the trucks to get them from the farmers,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
directly buy from a farmer. It's a different way of food provision
Right, right.
or
Um,
community
being a
garden.
little more self-sustaining, and I think there's, you know what I think about. I've heard some really incredible things that they're doing. Some of the lower economic areas in Detroit, they're building community gardens that they could
Yes,
then get access to better nutrition. That's overpriced or charged too much in their grocery stores that they can't really afford. And so what do? They get processed foods. They eat, so it's this problem with socioeconomic issues of individuals that don't make, you know, median household incomes, or
right,
single home incomes. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. There's such a thing as mutual aid networks.
Uh huh.
I haven't explored those too much, but I'm going to. Where you're online, and I've looked at it, and it's people that need help, and
Right.
they reach out and they say, "I need, you know, a lawnmower." Well,
Uh
somebody's
huh.
not going to give them a lawnmower, but in the neighborhood, they're going to drive it over and let them use their lawnmower every 2 weeks or something.
Right. That makes sense.
Um,
Yeah.
an elderly person that can't get to the grocery store, can anybody drive Evelyn to the grocery store on Saturday mornings?
Mm-hmm.
People line up for that. Um, I had my car stolen 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. I guess that would be 4 years ago because it was on Christmas Eve. Um, and a guy that I didn't know at all helped me find it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he's this marvelous guy. Called himself Coach A. I can't remember his first name because he just goes by Coach A.
Uh huh.
Um, but that's his mission, as well as being an inner city basketball coach, and he teaches
Okay.
young people about self esteem and dignity.
That's cool.
Yeah, um, but reaching out to a stranger, and he does this all the time. He helps people find their car.
Interesting. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry that got stolen. Let me help you with that. I mean, what an incredible thing to do, because you think
Yeah,
about how much time and like what rabbit holes you can go down doing that. You just don't know what kind of a time suck it's going to be. And yet,
yeah,
you find it as like, this is people's livelihoods. And, what you can, I mean, imagine you can, cause you had your car stolen, but how much your world gets turned upside down when something that's part of your basic needs for survival, to go to your job, to go get groceries, to get medicines. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really
So
descriptive.
we have this guy on the Milwaukee Bucks basketball team. His name is
Uh-huh.
Bobby Portis. Do you know who
I,
Bobby Portis is?
no, I don't. I'm not familiar with him.
He's a second stringer, but he's like a popular folk here in Milwaukee because of his personality, his character. He fits Milwaukee like a glove. His uh, hard work ethic, plays with passion.
Yeah.
He is hooked up with this Coach A that I'm talking about, and
Okay.
is involved in this little humble gym in the inner city, helping these kids.
That's
And
cool.
it's all volunteer effort on Bobby Portis's
Hmm.
part. So um, mutual aid does that sort of thing, and it's an expanding uh, movement in the United States.
Yeah,
It
that's
can
cool.
just be visiting people in their homes,
Right.
shut-ins, elderly, but it's also things like driving somebody to pick up their prescription, to the grocery store, lawnmower, like I mentioned, um,
Hmm.
lawn work.
Yeah. No, that
So
makes sense.
it's beautiful like that. Building alternatives.
Yeah.
Also, on a further. Oh, what, were you gonna say something?
No, no. My wheels turn about little ideas that pop in.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Thinking along those lines of basketball in the inner city, and I just remember my daughter's little team in the citywide league. We went and played another team, and it's all based on school, which of course school means geographic, right? So we are going to play kids from schools whose homeschool or whatever their school designation is in lower income earning areas. Um, and I don't remember much about the details of the game that we played other than one, we won against them. But the other thing I remember is every time there was a timeout or a break between quarters or the halftime, the girls would run over to the gym's water fountain. And didn't even think about it, how I'm looking at my daughter's bench and they've got little fancy Gatorade bottle or their little Stanley water pitcher that's, $50. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like we have such excess. And yet something as simple as just having like just regular bottled water, not to mention a personal water bottle. And that just made me think like, gosh, maybe next time we go play a team that is in an area, without trying to be too, what's the word, I don't know. There's a word I'm looking for, but just being like, hey, here's some water bottles for your team here, whatever, just bringing something like that because it was really, yeah, it just really struck a chord with me that all of our kids, come from an area with more income and they all had
Yeah,
fancy water bottles and some of these kids don't even have one. They had to run
that's
to the
really
school
beautiful.
drinking fund. So you
These little
you're
gestures are what it's
yeah,
all about, aren't they?
yeah,
Was the
exactly.
word that you were looking for patronizing or something like that?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
without
yeah,
being patronizing. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So that I'd have to figure out how to navigate that, but
Yeah.
yeah. So
Beautiful. Beautiful.
anyway, um ways to do that. So
I love it. And um, a little more involved than these things, mutual aid things, are two other things which are I haven't explored, but Mary and I seem to be in agreement that we want to look into permaculture,
yeah,
permacultural practice. I think you said that you have friends that are into that.
I do have some friends that do that. One of them is in Oregon. They have a little farm. I mean, the other one's just outside of town here. One of my colleagues that I work with, they're both nurses, but his wife has gotten certified into soil science and that kind of stuff. And they're doing a whole bunch of permaculture work on their property, from felling logs to build self regenerating compost. And then they have a garlic farm that they've got going on. and just building around a community of people who do that similar stuff, and really you kind of trade and learn from one another too. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty fascinating. My friends in Oregon, they do it all. Um, the spectrum of it, from a farm stand with fruit and vegetables to chickens to, you name it.
Remarkably beautiful to me.
Yeah.
And then there's this other thing called bioregionalism. And then
Oh.
if you mix, I'll describe it in a minute, but if you mix um, permaculture with bioregionalism, you have the makings of a radical movement.
Interesting.
Bioregionalism is, I first came upon this from the legendary Gary Snyder a long time ago, 20 years ago. Um, and I thought, well, that sounds cool. And then I just forgot about it, and now it's boomerang back on me. So, bioregion, it's being aware of your place and the life forms that are indigenous to it.
Mm,
So, yes, it's about knowing the Native American history of your neighborhood, but it's also knowing what are the native um, plants, trees, shrubs, what's the soil like, and what's the wildlife like of where you live, that if humans weren't there, it would be flourishing.
yeah.
So, being indigenous to and faithful to your bioregion. I think yours is called Cascadia. I could be wrong.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know the name of mine, but mine goes from central Minnesota across to Hudson River Valley of New York.
Oh
That
wow.
swath of land goes up into Canada a little bit,
Uh-huh.
50 miles north of the border, and all the way across.
Yeah.
That's my bioregion. It's where the trees are the same, the plants. I could plant something in Hudson River Valley, New York, and it's native to Wisconsin, and there's not a conflict.
Yeah.
The squirrels are the same, whatever.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
Uh, how much overlap or similarity would you say that with bioregionalism to just what you kind of see when you're looking for plants and you're looking at what you would do based on your zones? You know how there's like, I live in this zone, and then you can basically decide if that's something that's this grows in zones 6 and 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of overlap in that, you think?
I think that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm pretty ignorant about this. I know where it is. I know that
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Right.
What do I got here? Right here I've got this book.
Landscaping with native plants. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
And I've got another book over there called Bioregionalism. The guy that invented it, or first described it, I imagine it wasn't invented by him. I imagine it's thousands of years old. His name is Peter Berg. He was out in San Francisco in the 60s. He started
Okay.
talking about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
But to
just pulled up a
have,
little graphic on this. That's cool. I will say you're in what is this? Prairies or Laurentia or something like that? Does that sound familiar?
Laurentia
Laurentia?
does sound familiar, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But is that what it is?
If this graphic that I just randomly pulled up is to believe, then because I see what you say. You said I'm in Cascadia, and then kind of where you are, there's prairies, and then you're in Laurentia. So yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Is that from Lawrence
Um,
Seaway? Or?
I looked. It's just the first site that came up, and it's a Canadian-based site, Canada site for bioregionalism, Oak and Orca. I don't know what that means, but this image came from their site. So, yeah.
So, if I, I follow, I switched from Twitter to Blue Sky, and
Hmm.
first thing that I did was pull up a handful of bioregional people,
Yeah.
and the second thing I pulled up was permaculture people.
Okay.
and then homesteading people. And I'm also, I love my French and Scots Gaelic, my Welsh and Scots Gaelic languages. So I'm pulling up a lot of Welsh and Scottish stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting to see these people. I mean, Donald Trump is known to be a threat. His talk of, you know, the vaccine stuff and the
Mhm.
FDIC stuff and the environmental protection stuff is all very serious, but they're not overly thrown off by it because their
Right.
their view is elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know, they're local.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's I mean uh, there's a point where you're living in this world and this state of being that's really centered in your locale of, and getting caught up in bigger national or world sort of events. I don't know if it's what do you think? What's your theory on that? Is it just I don't, not necessarily a deliberate, but like kind of bury your head in the sands and just stick to it? But I also can see some sort of healthy aspects of that, where if you choose to intentionally be like, well, there's this big thing, I can't focus on it, my energy, I have to guard my energy to the things which I can influence, that do impact, my personal well-being, my family, my friends, my circle that's really close knit here. um, and if that's all I have the energy for, that's what I do. um,
That's why that's I see it as it could cut both ways. It could be that you are persuaded to be too disengaged,
uh-huh. Okay.
But on the other hand, how healthy is it to be stressing over um, the incoming uh, administration every day when you've got
Yeah.
much more power to be looking up local plants and planting them.
Right, right. um, Something that I came across, and I think when you told me about this Waging Nonviolence website, I had looked for something similar to the article which you're describing with these things. I forget 4 or 5 that you mentioned. Is one of the articles I thought I was reading, which was similar to the one you're reading, but something that stuck with me when I read that article was something regarding like tips for living in this authoritarian world now, or now that Trump has won. And something I truly try to adopt is, and the tip was, release or let go of that which you cannot change. So, you know, are you getting angst, being angered and angsting and, ranting about it in your social group or your social media? Is that really, you know, are you really changing anything with that?
That's right.
No, let that go. What would be worth your time and energy that could affect effectively cause lead to change? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's one of the 10 points on here. Release that which you cannot change. I don't know if we can get to it today,
Okay.
but I like
Okay.
what
So
you
maybe
said.
this was in the same article then. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so healthy.
Yeah.
I find myself still in my old pattern from the first Trump administration of posting about his latest atrocities on Facebook and then arguing with people. And it's just like, that's really not how
Okay.
I want to be. I want to do it some, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I have about 4 or 5 Trump supporters in my friend base, and I want them to see the error of their ways.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as developing some permacultural practices,
Right. Right. Yeah.
doing some mutual aid,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, which is where the action is, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Right. That's where really affecting changes. That's really where we fight and it's not, I say fight, not like we're going to put our gloves on and box one another, but more like the fight of, well, we are going to foster behaviors, senses of community and partnership and collaboration that builds these connections versus breaking them down as these administrations, as the authoritarian would want you to do, which
Yes.
is to crumble and to then show up as though, look at what I did, look what I did, look how you need us, and you need this establishment, you need this authoritarian, because you guys can't do it on your own. And it's like, no, let's show the world how we can do it on our own, and we won't be manipulated by the authoritarian.
Nick, I'm going to put you up for governor of the state of Washington.
No, thanks. Politics sounds terrible. Yeah.
All right. So the next one is, we talked about last week, we talked about protect people and defend civic institutions. And this time we brought up build alternatives. And there's, we could probably, any of these we could talk about for weeks.
Yeah.
This next one is disrupt and disobey. And the first thing I'm thinking about with that is, what am I even thinking? I just had a blank.
Disobey.
Disrupt and disobey. I'm thinking about this other point, which is do not obey in advance and do not self-censor.
Yeah.
Speaking out.
Well, okay. I'll exactly what you're saying. Like, I don't want to go be all angry, but I'm not going to censor myself now that my political alignment didn't win, and the one which I would prefer not to have won. So you're like, I'm not going to censor myself and stop speaking out. So like you said, you're like, I got to find the line of continuing to advocate, to speak about what this means, what we're doing right here, because we won't be censored. You can't just go silent after the election results are over.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What's true to me is that this pigtails really well with build alternatives. The alternatives can be a way to disrupt and disobey.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're going to cut the after-hours school mentoring program. That's all right. We've already got that covered in mutual aid.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got a community group here who's getting the rec center, and we're offering after school tutoring and support with community people and, volunteers. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like, and the whole thing about thinking in terms of permaculture and bioregionalism is that it's the toxicity of the incoming government doesn't have as much power, and you can just maybe not even disrupt and disobey, but ignore. Yeah. And I'm not saying ignore all the evils that they're doing, but what can you really do about it outside of vote in 2 years?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a difference between ignore to protect your sanity and mental well-being and whatever, and being complicit. Yeah.
Totally on point. You and I think very similarly. So,
well, I think we think similarly to millions of other people. So that's part of the hope. I mean, and when I say millions of other people, I will say that there are probably elements where we are 95% like-minded in thinking to some people who voted for Trump. I truly believe that. And that's what's really, it's both hard, and it's also, it's the way forward. It's the only way forward is to
Make
work on
you
that.
mean working on the agreement?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think it's 95% agreement?
Um, I mean, I don't think so. No, I'm just saying I think there's some really like-minded people who may have had only like the like-mindedness ends at somewhere in that 95%, and that other 5% is the part that said I'm going to vote for this person.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my point. I don't think as a whole we are on the spectrum. I just think that it's incredible that someone who's probably 95% like-minded to you or I voted the other way. And that's what's really incredible about it, and scary, and also gives me a little bit of hope. But
What I think of with those people,
yeah.
um, I'm thinking of one person that's that way that I know. Um, I say to her, the rape,
Mm. Yeah.
the hideous cruelty, the minimum 15,000 lies told during the previous administration,
Yeah.
the wanting to shoot people as they were coming across the Rio Grande, you know,
Yeah.
the saying that some Nazis are very fine people, the terrible action on abortion. That's all good with you? No, but and then she
Right.
tries to wiggle away, and it's like
Yeah.
she's been the victim of misinformation. She has good
Mm.
intentions, but she's now gotten to the point where, and I said canceling Medicaid. I mean, seriously? And Social Security? You need Social Security, young lady who's about 70. And she says, that's not really Trump.
Mm.
I think that's how she might have a good, wholesome core within her, but she's also got this perverted twisting thing where she's watched too much Fox News or something.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's somehow the party system. You can say there's a lot of things that are very party line oriented, and then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh well, that's not just Trump, that's the party that's in alignment with this view on abortion. Or that's not just Trump, that's a lot of people in this political party. That's not, you could really like downplay and or humanize and normalize him by that, and then you're like, oh, now all of a sudden you've normalized all of these other things, and it's like, oh, I guess we can overlook the other things because he must be just normal, and these other things are like well, somehow there's this master class in normalizing him. And when you do the
Oh,
normalizing, you're normalizing those truly horrendous things. And I think that's what, because I'm like, how do you like people who are like, no, I don't support people who rape. I don't support, people who mock people with disabilities. Like, you can, I mean, 95% of us were like, no, that's not cool. That's unclassy. That's not necessary. There's no place in society for that. Well, okay, then how could you just discard that? Oh, well, somehow we humanized and normalized this person as though he's just like everybody else. No. What happened there? Yeah.
I
So
love
there's normalizing, and then there's the what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, profit. Making him into some sort of martyr prophet.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, I drove down the road the other day, and we talked about in a previous episode how you're associating patriotism. So American flag, you
Yeah,
must
yeah, yeah.
you must be a patriot. Therefore, if you're a patriot, you're now part of this group of people who just tends to be Trump supporting. And I was like, well, actually, no. I mean, I had my my
Yeah,
political signs for Harris Walls out in my yard, and I have an American flag, or
I love it.
I have my
I
pride
love it.
flag underneath my American flag.
Yeah.
But I go down roads right now, and people don't even have an American flag out. They have a Trump flag, and I don't mean just any Trump, like a Trump 2020 flag, or a Trump 20. And I'm like, that's 4 8 years old. Like, you worship this person so much so that you'll even display a flag, not to show your support for voting. It's just you're so absorbed with this person. So there's this absorbed with, infatuated with, and also normalize him to the point that you just kind of let his flaws slide. It's weird. It's really weird. Anyway,
It is.
we're
All
still
right.
talking about the waging nonviolence, authoritarian times.
All right, Nick, I've got something for you.
Okay.
The next one. Get real about power, and I've got something to read to you.
Ooh.
Get real about power, and I love this one. I really love it. When I read I was like, this is. I don't know how we're going to do this, but it seems like it seems like a road forward.
Okay.
A guy named the guy that wrote this article. I still haven't looked up his name. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But he quotes somebody else named Gene Sharp. By themselves, rulers cannot collect taxes, enforce repressive laws and regulations, keep trains running on time, prepare national budgets, direct traffic, manage ports, print money, repair roads, keep markets supplied with food, make steel, build rockets, train the police and army, issue postage stamps, or even milk a cow. People provide these services to the ruler through a variety of organizations and institutions. If people would stop providing these skills, the ruler could not rule.
Hmm.
I'll read the last two sentences. People provide these services to the ruler through a variety of organizations and institutions. If people would stop providing these skills, the ruler could not rule.
Interesting.
And then they also talk, you may have read this when you read the article about the upside down triangle.
Yeah, I think you talked about that.
Did I?
Mm-hmm. A little bit.
Oh, I have trouble. So the upside down triangle is how power is.
Yeah.
And we're on the bottom, the lower part of this. And Trump and his friends are up there on the top, but they need pillars of support.
Uh-huh.
As you see those little people holding up, which is our cooperation.
Right.
And so if we pull out the pillars, the triangle can fall, which sounds like a great theory, but if you think about ways that we can undermine the dictatorship, so to speak, if I'm not sure if they're competent enough to pull it off, but that's their hope.
Right.
We can make it tumble. And the thing about that is, I thought about this quite a bit. The thing about this is that it requires risk and sacrifice on those of us who are pulling out the support. We don't want to hurt others while we're doing this, while we're withdrawing. But they use examples of, for instance, Trump had in his first administration, had something he was going to come down hard on airlines and airline unions. And so the flight attendants organized a strike.
Okay.
It was going to cripple, flight business in the
Right.
United States, and Trump caved to them in a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, what if Trump were to, he doesn't like electric cars. Maybe now he does, now that he's got Elon involved. But if he wants to go after the big companies like Ford and GM for doing electric cars, maybe because he's friends with Trump and with Musk, and he wants to get rid of their, and the um, United Auto Workers went on strike.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. That would humiliate Trump.
Yeah.
You know, there's ways that we can withdraw support. I'm
Yeah.
not so sure that I can, sitting here in my house,
Right. Right.
but the nation can. And then when we see something happen, to be supportive of it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have quite the movement.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you'd have to have quite the movement in order to sway people who have much more to gain with a Trump presidency, Trump legislation, for their large corporations, for their whatever it may be. So you have to have such a movement that you pull people of that amount of influence that can move markets, can wobble those pillars of support.
Until they see that it's not the case.
Right.
Until you know this article and this woman that I've mentioned before, Ruth Ben-Ghiat.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned her book, Strongmen.
Yeah.
She talks about the way that these authoritarians collapse ultimately is, um, one little actions slowly erode their power, and then all of a sudden they collapse because of enough people see, oh, you know what, this is actually bullshit. You're actually harming us. This tariff thing is creating a trade war, which is increasing our price of eggs by $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff
Yeah.
like that. Or enough people have to wipe their grandparents' ass because of Medicaid being gone that they're like, no, actually, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I think. I think that's what makes. And again, I don't know, not to be ageist or anything here as we talk about, I'm a
Watch
different
it.
generation, not to be ageist here. Um, but does the Trump in his, what is he, your early 70s now?
No, late.
Oh, how late? I don't even know his age
I think
anymore.
he's like 78 or 9.
Okay.
I could be
What?
wrong.
What? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 67. I know he's not just a couple years older than me. I think
Okay.
he's a
So
decade older.
yeah. Good. You're right. He's a good. Yeah. So, I mean, even 4 years, 5 years,
Yeah.
does he have uh, the mental wit and capacity to be that sharp enough to appease over here on one hand, hey, look what I'm doing for you. Isn't this great? I'm supportive of this. You guys thought I was all this type of this going to be this authoritarian dictator. You thought I was going to play from the 2025 playbook or whatever. And look at me, I'm not. And then over here, he's doing this on the right hand. And it's exactly out of the 2025 book. And I think that's who he is. That's what makes him, kind of scary and also genius because he can do these things. I'm going to appease a group while I over here, and I'm going to do this, and it's such manipulation,
Yeah.
horrific. But at the same time, I don't know many people who can pull that off. And but I don't know. I have my doubts about whether he's got the person. He's not the person in his prime who can mentally facilitate all that anymore. So there's such an unknown. Are we going to get the washed up, aging Trump, or are we going to get flashes of the mastermind person that got him to where he is today? I just
No, I think we're going to get the washed up aging Trump. But the thing about it is that he's got, and he's assembled this cabinet, which is horrifically, not that they're all that they've all passed yet, but
mm-hmm.
he'll try to skirt the Senate and just put him in there as the Secretary of State temporary or something like that, and then keep him there for 4 years.
Acting,
but they're also bad. He doesn't. And J.D. Vance can't step and be the man of substance who rescues the sinking ship.
right?
Yeah.
There was somebody that was appointed a cabinet position, which I forget who it was, but it came as a shock or a surprise because they were very strong, outspoken against Project 2025. And it was like, wow, this is a weird case of picking somebody from the opposition.
Was this a finance guy?
I can't remember what it was.
I remember he actually has a competent person in his financial advisor.
And so I guess that's my point, is that, okay, you guys think I'm going to be all this. Well, let me show you that I'm not. Here's some little nuggets that get all the attention of it. Meanwhile, it's smokescreen.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're going to pull polio vaccine from you.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think that's what's this administration, that's what worries me, is the amount of misdirection. Appeal to this part, appeal to this, look like the good guy, and then at the same time look, here's some things that I'm doing behind the scenes or on the backside. Real quick, I know we've reached an hour, and I actually might have to do something. I'll check my phone here in a bit. But along this line, I want to point out something, because we're talking about waging nonviolence. And I think it's important, given some of the recent events that have unfolded, and we can, without going too conspiracy theory or anything into it, but the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. And I think about that and what has come out of from what was written on the bullet casings. There's some real activism going on here, and almost vigilantism. But it is already spurring some of this dissent, which I think in a way can be healthy, but also, for people who are talking about waging nonviolence, obviously not condoning those things, and valuing human life above all. And I also, it's scary that, bold things like, this person who, acted out like this, there's it's fueling people's fire a little bit to question practices of the largest insurers and what they're doing, and denying claims for people. We're looking at a point where, we talk about massive profits in corporations, and CEO bonuses, the things that they do to pay themselves and the company before they pay the frontline workers who can't afford to keep up with inflation. There's a movement, and I think that's all the more reason that it's important to talk about or be aware of ways to do it non-violently, because I want to be a part of this movement. I think this movement is needed. But I don't want to see a bunch of people getting gunned down.
Same. Yeah, 100% the same. Obviously, I don't have any conflict over that. It's just, no, you can't shoot people.
Yeah, right. You can't
you lose
CEOs.
You lose any moral authority you may have. Now, on the other hand, I did hear yesterday that a little old lady, and maybe she maybe she'd be offended by me calling that. Maybe she's my age, but somebody called her that. Hit the CEO of Enron in the face with a pie. I thought that's nonviolent, and that's amusing to me.
Yeah, there's some things that I think can be funny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. So
I wanted.
everybody has a right to protest, and I think that's part of America.
That's right.
Stand up for what you believe in, even though we don't always agree with what others believe. So
Yeah. So I want to do the shortest little lead in for next time. We're going to get off of this topic, and we're going to talk about. We had talked in the past about wake up, grow up, clean up, and we're going to talk about show up. We did talk about it a little bit, but we're going to talk about Bernie Glassman and the Zen pacemakers and his 3 tenets, TENETS, which are very helpful for people on how to show up. Are you there?
just a lot of my
You froze. Nick?
I'm here. It does okay.
You've All right, people, if you're watching, I've lost Nick, and I think we're gonna.
Okay, I think I'm. Yes, I'm in and out.
Are you there? All right, we'll go off. Bye, everybody. Good to be with you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.